want to make sure that where there's legato between the 6, you know, the 6 says measure, starts with measure 3 and 4, right? Where you have parallel 6. Make sure that you get the legato with the upper fingers because the thumb can't do the legato, right? So I was hearing a little disjointing or disconnection actually. When you do this, watch. You have to drag 5 to 4, see? So you get what you call, you make a fake legato because you can't make your thumb a legato, but you go for the upper finger to give the legato. And here, instead of getting a disconnection there. Yeah, you're going to be using a little pedal, but nonetheless, the pedal is going to help with the thumb not sounding that it dried out. But the upper finger has to be done with the hands to get the legato, like this. Right? Now I would only be pedaling the downbeat, and I would lift the pedal on naturally on the paggiatura resolution, because you don't want to blur there. You want
yes.
So let me hear those two 6. Better. Now that's good.
Yeah.
Now use the pedal only on the first of the 8th notes. Right. You're not going to do 2 pedals. You're just going to do 1 pedal there. Like pedal off, pedal off. But the legato is going to come from the 5 to the 4 with your fingers.
Oh.
Right, there you go, you got it. So you want to keep in mind that you don't want a disconnected pair of 8ths there. As connected as you did this, right? Yeah. Yes, the other thing was that when you came out of the first few measures and you went to the new part, you know, with the 16ths, you want to keep the same fundamental beat. It started to have a different beat than the starting point. Because here's your beat, right, for now, yes? Let's say that's your beat.
Yes.
Okay, that means this has to be... And what happened was it got faster. You have to keep a steady beat when you, even in slow practice, you keep a steady beat. Right? When you do the duet or the duo between the tenor and the bass, you might want to subdue the soprano. I've been playing with this myself so that you could hear the gorgeous tenor and bass. So that means this hand is to be lighter. Unless you want to hear yourself do more of. Now when that happens, we hardly hear the left-hand interaction. Now there could be a kind of an in-between where you hear all of it. And so that's something you might want to see, maybe draw out the bass, but also hear this.
Yeah, that's quite a big difference.
Yeah, and you know that, you play around with different levels of weighting your arms as to what you want to hear. But most of the time, students don't bring anything out in the left hand. And all we hear is the right hand, which isn't correct, because there's counterpoint there, right? The counterpoint is
yes.
This, ta-dee, ta-dee. That's one thing, that's the bass. Then you have ta, rest, ta, rest, ta, rest, ta. And then you have that nice interaction with the tenor and the bass. And then you have the beautiful soprano. So you have to somehow bring them all out. There's always counterpoint in Bach, and here it is too. You have to decide what are you leaning on in each voice. So, in the right hand, you have sort of you think it's a dominant, right?
Yeah.
But it really goes to this jazzy chord, right? That's
7th chord, yeah.
Yeah, see what it does? Listen. Very jazzy. It goes to 7ths. But it's still lean left. less, lean less. Now the left hand is also lean less when you do lean less, lean less. You really have to do that. Lean less, lean less. Against that, lean less, lean less, lean less, lean less. So separate that out and see that you shape that lean less, dominant tonic. And at the same time, they actually follow in the same lean less at the same moment. You know that.
Yes.
The syncopated note is the tenor. You're rest, rest, lean less, lean less. But you should be able to sing all of those lines, right, before you even play that section. You should know what, you know, the bass sounds like, what the tenor's doing, and what the soprano's doing. So try it. Try making all the voices the same level, except that you're leaning and shaping. Let the right hand be expressive, and let all the voices have their own expression. By the way, this business of the doubles, you know, and slurs of two comes from what? This, the beginning.
From beginning, yeah.
This. He does a lot of the sighing eighth notes pairs. So here it is again, but it's longer. I would say it's augmentation. Why do you say augmentation? Because now instead of eighth notes in pairs, they're quarter notes in pairs. In the left hand, yeah?
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's more like, it's just a little variation of the eighths in pairs because it has syncopated notes, right? Because normally it would be da da da, bum be da, bum be da. But still, you know, you still have the pair there at the end after you tie the note. Yeah, now you're seeing that you have to resolve the way the harmony is. You have to resolve, right? Always resolve. That means you have to lean less, but you have to remember to hold the quarters over. Lift your hand, by the way, there. Lift. Lift it. Lift. We're trying to get the motif into that from the beginning because that's what he does. He does bum, 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 pia. It follows. Yeah, I would do that because he has repeated notes here, right? You're lifting your hand anyway. Look at this. Your hand's lifting, yes.
So
I wouldn't play legato all the way across from the left. I would absolutely go. Because that's how you're going to get the lean less, is by lifting your hand.
So the right hand also lifts as well, right?
Well, it has to because it's got repeated notes there on the E flats and the Fs. Yeah, it has to lift. Your both hands are going to lift in certain places together, yes? No, not here, but here. Watch, here. Yeah, this follows the way the piece is breathed out at the beginning. Yeah, because these are the twos. The piece starts with the, you know, where it completely overdoes the twos all the time in the beginning, those twos, and that keeps coming back. When later it will too. Bum, pee, right? Bum, pee. So it makes sense to go, it's augmentation. It's like taking the eighths and making them into quarters, pairs. They're in pairs. Okay? And in fact, what I do, in the left hand, I go into, 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 into. Here you have to hold because it's a quarter note, but into. I do that? I'm bringing back the twos of the beginning, the sighing twos. It's learned in two, and the upstairs is in two when you think about it, because it's a syncopated rhythm, right? See that? And then you could really follow it too. And now, here I do the three, but now two. Into, leanless, leaned, toddy, So when I learn it, I sing all those lines so I know them. And now what comes back in the other hand is that second idea where he goes, this comes back when you do, right? That comes back to that idea in the beginning. Now the longer, you have this crazy dissonance he does here, right? Who expects that? That's wacky. It's almost like it doesn't belong, right? Right? Yes, leanless. Yeah, yeah. I would just listen for that inner voice. You know, you hear that underneath the soprano, almost like an alto. See, Bach has a lot of that where, you know, you might see the stems going one direction, but you can hear, because there's so many common tones upstairs, that you're listening to the moving notes, right? You're listening to and there's nothing going on inside, but there really is something going on. Why would he do that? Why would he have moving notes and have common tones here? We don't want to hear all that, right? You know, we want to hear what's moving.
A sharp.
Right.
Or A flat. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, when I did my recording, I really did listen for the inner voice, and I brought out that inner voice there, the cadence. Now, I could say this is an alto voice when you block, see?
Yes.
You know, when you block, you get a lot of information about Bach, you know, like in the... in that prelude in C major, you block it, you know exactly what the thread of the melody is for sure. But here, if you block, you know, all that right hand, you hear the alto coming out all by itself. In the left hand, you just have to, you know, we know what the lean less with the duo between the tenor and the bass. We know that is a very interesting counterpoint between the tenor and the bass. We also know the treble, we can't ignore that, upstairs to that. And then when you get to this more complicated place, I would probably choose to bring out the left hand quite a bit. But then by the cadence, we have to, you know, have a cadence in the right hand. So I would go, make it kind of equal, but not go. Does that make sense? No.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Because, you know, that the rhythm tells you that notes that are brought out by the rhythm of it too. So the rhythm also, and the harmony, tells us what to do. The way the notes are written tells us what to do. But the harmonic rhythm is very important here. Yeah, that's good. You know, that's a place where you can do a lot of separate hands. And also do separate, you know, I would do this first. I'm doing just the bass there. I mean, when I learned Bach, I forced myself to learn every single separate line. Before I do a part like with a bottom in the middle, like then after I do the tenor alone and I do the bass alone, then I do the bass and tenor together. Then I might do the bass and treble only. Then I might do the treble and the tenor together. That's a lot of work. Then I put them all together.